Okay, since we have 2 more weeks of class, this is probably the big extra credit project that's going to let those of you who have not made the points you wanted to make, particularly on the papers, attempt to compensate for that. So here's the way it's going to work. By Friday, since today is Thursday, so by midnight tomorrow night, you need to email me with a research proposal that you want to work with, something that you want to do some work with that will span the entirety of the course. Since this is effectively to make up for primary source papers, it's going to have primary sources, and the number of primary sources it's going to have is dependent on how many points you think you need to make on it. Now, when I sent you back your grades, what you should have seen at the very bottom, in the very bottom right-hand column, was your percentage out of 85%, because that's everything we've done so far. The only thing still outstanding is your final exam, which is worth 15%. So, if you were making in the high 70s or even into the 80s, then you're looking at making a B or an A in the course, unless you really, really bomb the final. So you're probably not going to be all that interested in this unless you just really want to be sure that you still have a decent grade, even if you bomb the final. But for those of you who have anything less than, say, 77 on that, I would completely recommend that you do this. Principally because most of you are hurting on the primary source papers. So this is going to give you the opportunity to kind of do them all in one shot or make up where you are all in one shot. So if you have, let's say, a grade of 65 out of 85, then you really want to shoot for making at least 20 points on this. In fact, I actually encourage you, if you didn't do well in the midterm, to even bump that point value up, because the final is going to be exactly like the midterm in that you're answering 7 questions. This time, though, you're going to have 3 hours instead of 2 hours to do it, but it's still the same format. You still have to use your textbook, you still have to use Harari and Frankopan, you still have to use the sources that I've required for the course, and you still have to do the citation. So you still need to be able to do answers very quickly, which means you need to be familiar with the information and not spend a lot of time looking around for it. Thus, if you're worried about your final grade, then I encourage you to shoot higher on the number of points you want to make on this so that you've got a little wiggle room at the end of the term when I'm putting all the grades together. Okay, so the rule on this is going to be for every 10 points you want to make, you need 3 primary sources. So if you want to say, as in the estimate that I gave here, if you want to make 26 points, then you're going to need 8 sources. 3 for the first 10 points, 3 for the second 10 points, 2 for the 6 points over that you want. Okay, that gets us through this. The other thing you have to bear in mind is that since the research project is going to span the entirety of the course, your primary sources also need to span the entirety of the course. So if you're using 3 primary sources, say you only want to attempt 10 points, you still need to pick them from 3 different eras. If you're using more than that, then you want to scatter them through that. The eras that we worked with in this course are early modern, from 1300 to 1750, industrialization, 1750 to 1900, the World War period, 1900 to 1945, the Cold War, 1945 to 1991, and then the global present, 1991 to the present. You can, which of course are very easy to find, you can use anything out of the current news for that last category. But the ones before that, you're going to need to find sourcing that falls, primary sources that fall in that time period. Okay, for this extra credit, to save both of us from wasting time, you must submit your primary sources to me by Sunday so that I can check and make sure they're actually primary sources. Sorry, that says Saturday. I actually meant for it to say Sunday. You absolutely must get them to me so that I can vet them. Because what's happened with a lot of you is that you've submitted the papers, but you made zeros on them because you didn't use actual primary sources. So this time, to make sure that we're all on the same page, I have to approve your primary sources. All right, so here's the actual timeline. You submit to me by midnight tomorrow, Friday, your research proposal. Again, I'd pick a topic that is something you can look at over the entirety of the course, something like, I don't know, women's rights, civil rights in the Western world or even in some other part of the world, the effects of globalization on world politics, colonization. You can go back and look through the discussions. Almost all of those are things you can do from the beginning of the course all the way up to the present. Or you can look at some current contemporary issue and trace it through the course. Any of those sorts of things are good. But what you're going to do is you're going to email me that topic and the number of points that you want to attempt to make for it. Over the course of Saturday, we'll exchange emails in which I will help you finesse that topic and give you some guidance on how you want to look at it. Then by Sunday at midnight, you need to get me your primary sources so that if, and with that, I mean title, author, link. If you're using von Sivers or Strayer and Nelson with sources and you're using sources out of the books, that's great. You need to give me the authors, the edition number, whether it's fourth or fifth edition or whichever one, and the page number so that I can actually look at them. I'm less concerned with those because most of you now understand what the sourcing is for those. But definitely if you're using online stuff, I need to actually see it, so I need a link to go with it. The paper itself is due by midnight on Wednesday in a Dropbox that I will create specifically for it. As always, you must be using correct citation internally and in your works cited. No standalone links, no authors and page numbers. You need to have the full thing, which is author, title, date, page number for the works cited. You must use Frankopan and Harari as well as your textbook and your primary sources. No AI at all. I realized recently that you guys don't actually see the AI report that I do. It shows up on my Turnitin report. So don't even think about going to ChatGPT. Don't even think about going to any AI. If it has anything other than a flat zero on the AI, then it's a flat zero for the paper. This is not just my policy. This is school policy and university policy. In order to keep this in line, if you want to make the maximum number of points that you can, you must have a paragraph for every one of your sources discussing its bias. And I don't mean grouping them, I mean each one alone. If you use 10 primary sources, I need 10 paragraphs talking about the bias of that source. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere close to the magic number that you're trying to hit. These were requirements in the primary source papers. There are requirements in this as well, because this is all basically designed to help you make up the points for those primary source papers. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. This is, again, elective, but I encourage you, even if you have the grades you want right now, if you are worried about your final, I encourage you to do this. It won't hurt. Email me by tomorrow, Friday at midnight, with a topic that you want to do the research on or that you want to trace through the course, and we will begin the process working on it from there. All right?